You know what? I'm gonna start posting on. Not posting, using my desktop to post when I'm live. It's a lot easier. Politics, React Andy, and Farmin. Let's see. Oh shit, what category did I put myself in on Twitch? I didn't even check. Should I even be in PSO2? You know what, for now we'll stay on it, fuck it. Let's see. Oh my god, it's so good. Yeah, picture-in-picture is the new meta. I might not even need a third screen anymore, actually. If I can just use picture-in-picture. Start the video. Yeah, so what is this one about? Destiny gets heated versus former friend. Moderator steps in. Seems like some kind of like coronavirus fucking conspiracy theory bullshit. I'm not sure I'm even gonna like listen to this. But as always, let me check the audio before we start. Am I dropping frames? No, we're not. Good. Oh, hello? Okay, never mind. I thought my son of a bitch. The audio went out, and I thought my Bluetooth headphones disconnected, but that was just title screen restarting. Anyways, test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. That sounds pretty good. Oh yeah, I should probably lower the volume on this, huh? Is anti-micro? Anti-micro, yep.
So I guess I'm gonna ask a few of you guys. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone already knows. Like people like Destiny, he's vaccinated. Jeff is vaccinated. I'm not, but anyway, we're gonna start asking some people. So for one, let's go ahead and start with Geisha Montez. Are you vaccinated?
No.
You're not vaccinated?
No.
Okay.
I don't know the Ninja song, guys. I'm sorry.
Can you provide some information as to why you decided not to be vaccinated?
Is Fnatic
It was when things started to...
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Fnatic was anti-vax. I mean, he's already like a black separatist or black... I'd honestly say black supremacist. To be perfectly fucking honest. He literally said he just wouldn't date white women, like, at all. Oh boy. And he like defended it to the death. Like it was a good thing.
Not add up to me when I started researching, seeing, and a lot of things about the deals that were made with the countries, the deals between the pharmaceutical company and the governments, and also I did research on what are the potential ingredients on the vaccination itself, and then also I research on the virus and see the amount of side effects, and the possibility are way higher of having a side effect or something due to the vaccination than a 99.9% chances of you surviving a cold or a flu, or however they want to call SARS-CoV-2, which is the also known as the coronavirus, which we have a lot of different types of coronavirus in our bodies. And just, something that was also put out under a certain emergency, emergency use authorization, and then also all the trials and the legal situation between what happened in the laboratory in Wuhan, what happened with Fauci and the emails, the lies, and like all of that stuff really added up. And then this pressure of government politicians to try to coerce people to a point where they will lose their even how to feed their families, and like how they will lose everything they fought for, whether it's their career or their jobs. And everything doesn't add up when you know that this is not the worst case scenario in life in terms of like what things we fight against, in terms of like illness and issues, and even people passing out for drug addiction or for all other diseases. Me as a Dominican, I know that dengue or the mosquito disease is even worse than COVID, like by a million times, and no one is even paying any attention to that or making much of a deal. And I just got to a point of, I could talk about that for a long time, but to me it's very much about controlling. And then if we know now by now that they haven't stopped any spread, or they haven't.
What are we talking about right now? What is happening? Are we just
fourth one now, a fifth? After that, it's going to be a fifth. And I just, for me, a lot of the things didn't make a lot of sense, and I feel like the best thing for me, and I trust my my natural immunity, and I think the body has a lot of potential to heal itself from something like a cold or a flu.
Okay, I think that's as perfect an opener as I could have ever heard. We'll get into more of that. I think at this point we should just open the floor now. Does anyone have any sort of response or pushback to any of the things that were stated there? Is there background noise? What's that? Oh, it's fine. Anyone have any responses to that?
I mean, there's plenty. I don't know if you want to get into that right away, because I feel like once you open the floor to like debating or contesting any of her points, we're gonna be are we still doing intros? Is kind of my question.
No, so I wanted
we're just jumping into it. No more intros.
We're jumping straight into it. I didn't want to do like lengthy intros for everyone, because I think most people, you'll find out what their positions are like midway through. And if you really feel like you do need to really plainly state it, then you can do so in the course of the conversation.
This is going to be.
We're going to get around to everyone. So just you guys can start now.
I don't think there's anything wrong with governments making deals with pharmaceutical companies to incentivize the creation of drugs. We already did that in the United States with the orphan drug program. There's nothing wrong with that. If we think that there's something bad going on there, you kind of have to show something extra than just the government is making a deal with a company to produce a drug, especially when that drug is being produced in different labs all over the world, and especially when governments all over the world are using the drug. It seems kind of weird to just say that like the United States, along with one company, is creating some drug that might be a bad drug. Anytime somebody harkens to natural immunity or says that they have confidence in their natural immunity, I think that's a very intelligent thing to say. We should all have confidence in our natural immunity. That's why we get vaccinated. It's not an argument against vaccinations. It's a huge argument in favor of vaccinations, because our natural immunity is so good. We should be training it as much as possible without having to actually be infected with viruses that can cause harm to ourselves or other people. I don't remember what other talking points there were, but yeah, heard them all. So
it's a slippery slope about if we allow a booster this year, it's going to just continue to perpetuate further and further, as if like it's not an ongoing pandemic and the virus does not.
I mean, we do have a new flu shot every year too, right? I mean, it's not mandated, and I don't think anybody, at least in America, has mandated the booster shot so far, at least. So I don't know. I think you're overreacting there too, honestly.
Mutate and get intelligent, and that we are learning as we go here. It's not like a very well understood virus that has been around for centuries or anything like that. Or even
let me ask this. Do you believe, because I felt like in the very beginning of the pandemic, that when vaccines were first introduced, there was this talk, like some people were saying that we would probably be in a cycle of constantly taking boosters, and that stuff was kind of seen as conspiratorial at one point. But I guess nowadays it seems like it is pretty obvious that we are going to be taking more and more boosters, at least for a while, until we do figure out something, if not forever, right? So do you think that there is like at least that there is some sort of validation to the people who were skeptical about like the long-term effect of the vaccines, and now recognizing that these boosters and things are going to be pretty regular?
Well, I don't see why the normalization of like an annual check-in. We already do this with the flu shot, do we not? You know, so I just feel like that's like why is the standard, you know, tolerable on flu shot, but then suddenly not on vaccine, or at least in terms of COVID. But we can go further than that, but I would just start there with like, why is there even the bias on the perspective? But I guess if you want me to give a more elaborative than that, you're asking me, am I concerned with the possibility of there being the annual booster? Is that was your concern?
Not necessarily you, but that there were people who originally were vaccine hesitant, who were specifically saying that this was something that might happen regularly, and now we're starting to see that the efficacy, it seems like it drops down around 5 or 6 months, so it seems like this will be a regular thing. So then at one point, people were called conspiracy theorists for saying like this would be the regular, and now it seems like this is actually the norm.
Well, I don't want to use like dirty words here, but if you look at it like in a spectrum, whether it be like a full-blown COVID denial versus anti-vaccine versus vaccine hesitant versus like vaccine, I don't know, skeptic. It depends on the scale you're on there, but depending how high you are on that extreme
back here
like fringe would determine like the more things you're gonna try to reinforce in your worldview that, oh yeah, they want me to get it, or oh yeah, you know, of course it's gonna solve everything. I just get the booster and I get the vaccine and get 2 shots of it and everything else here. It's what they want me to do because I'm a puppet to them. You know, you can get conspiratorial and ultimately like push yourself further and further off the cliff to where, yeah, you can make everything reinforce your worldview with a predetermined conclusion. So it depends on where they stand to me at that time versus now.
I think it's a little. I think it's a little hard to compare the COVID vaccines to something like the flu vaccine, because the COVID vaccines were rushed to market, right? And there's a good reason for that to happen. But the reality is there were no stage 4 clinical trials that were completed when these were put out to market. Some of them now have those trials completed. I think the Pfizer vaccine does. It's fully approved by the FDA. But even those clinical trials are, there's questions about how useful they are, because the people that were in them were informed that they were being given placebos, and others had already been vaccinated by the time that they moved into stage 4. And secondly, I think that given that there are unanswered questions about the vaccine, I think and the boosters, that I think we need to be honest about, not just about how effective they are, but about the side effects, right? Because these trials have not been completed and they're still ongoing, and our understanding of this virus is still evolving. I think it's reasonable for somebody to look at that, right? Look at contradictory information that we're getting from medical professionals today, contradictory statements that were made by Fauci in the past versus what's being said today, versus studies that are coming out today, like the Caltech study that says that there's no significant difference in viral load in the upper respiratory tract of unvaccinated people versus vaccinated people. Fauci went out and contradicted that very recently. Right? And that statement contradicts something he said prior, because it's like 3 or 4 months ago he said that exact thing. So I think it's reasonable for somebody to take all this contradictory information, take the fact that we're still doing studies, there's still a lot of unanswered questions, and to say that, hey, I'm going to make the informed decision not to get the booster, not to get the vaccine.
I think that it's really important that when we use these phrases, I think we have to not load them in other ways. So like when we say things like there's lots of unanswered questions, there's a whole bunch of unanswered questions about side effects, that's just absolutely not true. Could there be some incredibly esoteric problem with this vaccine that has never occurred in the history of any other vaccine before, which would be seeing severe side effects past 2 months? I mean, I guess it's theoretically possible.
Okay,
You'd be dishonest to say otherwise. But like the chances of this happening are infinitesimal. It's very, 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 very small. Or my understanding is there's never been a vaccine with like side effects really past 2 months. So the idea that there's all these unanswered questions when we're talking about a vaccine that's been administered to more people than any other vaccine in human history is just absolutely not true. I don't like the phrase rushed to market when it comes to the vaccine either. I mean, we can say that there wasn't a process that the FDA went through for emergency use authorization, but rushed to market makes it sound like it was just haphazardly thrown together and then injected into people's veins. There was a process by which they went through with the FDA. There was a process by which the vaccine was authorized early on before phase 3 trials completed, but like there was a process that went through. I think rush to market is a pretty loaded phase in terms of that. In terms of talking about no significant difference in viral load between vaccinated and unvaccinated people, my understanding is I think there was one preprint that said that there was a similar viral load, but I think that the majority of the research that's come out has shown that there is a lesser viral load and there is a smaller chance of being infected and there is a smaller chance in carrying a large viral load for a long period of time. So even at the apex of your viral load between being vaccinated and unvaccinated, you're less likely to have that high of a viral load for as long if you are vaccinated versus unvaccinated. There are very weird number games we can play to try to say that it's just as bad in terms of viral load when you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, but the facts are that if you are vaccinated, you are going to be shedding the virus for a smaller period of time. You're going to have less serious side effects. The chance of being infected with someone is probably lower if you're vaccinated versus unvaccinated, or if you've been infected versus haven't been infected and are unvaccinated. Also, Fauci contradicting things is never an argument in favor or not in favor of anything. Half the contradictions that people bring up are just the information changing as it comes out. If you want to make an intelligent or an informed decision on something, then basing that on Fauci contradicting himself is probably the dumbest thing you can possibly do. Just look at where the research is, look at what every single country is doing, and you can kind of follow those guidelines there instead of like desperately harping on every single thing Fauci says to try to find one contradiction between what he said now versus in 2020 in April or something.
But what about saying, lying in Congress? Something as serious as that, where when it comes to like where if they funded or not the gain of function in the Wuhan laboratory.
Whether or not gain of function research was funded has literally nothing to do with any of the conversations we're talking about related to the vaccines now. That's a matter between Fauci and the congressional hearing. I don't know if that's being phrased correctly also in terms of him lying about that or that gain of function research. If he did lie, were the charges? If there are no charges, why wouldn't at least Republicans press charges against him? Doesn't seem to be the case. But even if that was the case, how does that relate?
Giving to people all the things that they need to follow, like so.
The information doesn't come from Fauci. He alone isn't making these decisions, right? It's not just him making the decisions.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't mean to imply that they've just like rushed some, Frankenstein vaccine out to the public. And when I say that they rush it, I mean compared to other vaccines. I think, as far as I'm aware, the fastest vaccine that's gotten to market was a measles vaccine that did complete stage 4 clinical trials, and that took 5 years. Right. So when I say rush to market, I just mean it got to the market at a much greater pace than any other vaccine that we have. And I think that when I speak about conflicting studies and Fauci's conflicting statements, I'm not saying that Fauci fucking up once, or maybe he didn't even fuck up. Maybe the new statements are a result of the studies that he was aware of at the time he was making the statement. Right. So he wasn't lying. He wasn't hiding anything. He was just not aware of a certain study, or he was aware of another study that I'm not aware of, or whatever it is. Right. But I think that as a member of the public, looking to the health professionals that are being put forward by our politicians and the media, and you look into the things they say. If you find these conflicting statements, and you find that things they're saying now don't match what they said 2 months ago, or things they said 2 months ago don't match what they're saying now, then I think that I think it's reasonable for that person to make an informed decision not to get the vaccine, right? Especially given that we talked about some of the untested side effects of the unanswered question.
I mean, when it comes to the overall, I guess, medical consensus on the vaccine, that hasn't really changed at all, though. I think it's always been get one of the vaccines, especially Pfizer or Moderna, right? Like, there hasn't been any, consistent, big pushback from the medical industry or medical field to not get the vaccines. So that's not really even true either, actually.
We're getting false positives on mammograms. We don't know why. False positives on prostate exams. We don't know why. There are unanswered questions as to the ACE2 receptors and how different those are affected in different groups of people. We don't know anything about that. We need to do pathogen priming. For that, we need clinical trials to answer those questions. Right, so there are unanswered questions here. The science is not settled. It is evolving. Right, and I say that as someone who made the decision to get vaccinated. Right, so I'm not saying, don't get vaccinated. I think you should. I think you should consult your doctor, look at the research yourself. I would personally, I'd trust the experts and go out and get the vaccine, but I don't think it makes sense to to mandate a kind of a vaccination on anybody at this stage.
Sure.
A small parenthesis. What about the censorship, the massive censorship that is happening with a lot of doctors and scientists who are trying to bring up their research or their studies, and they're just being constantly silenced because we say that, yeah, I'm going to follow the science. That's what we're being told a lot, but we are seeing a massive censorship of doctors, real doctors, not people just, and it doesn't matter because it's still, it's a freedom of speech violation. And then some people will say, well, social media, they can do whatever. It's like, well, actually not in the Article 19 of the civil rights, our universal human rights, that says that we are allowed to have freedom of speech on any sort of media, no matter the whatever ways we have to show now or to share our information, which is as we evolve through social media or anything, is still our way to have our freedom of speech, and it's being censored. Documents are being censored. A lot of, like I have scientists that they have struggled to get their research out, to get their studies out, their tests that they have done to the vials. And how are people going to see this? I feel like that is maybe something that I want to see what you guys feel about that.
And I don't know about kind of separate for myself from that a little bit. I don't know about any censorship or scientists being like rush off or whatever. My position is just that given that we're so early in the research, given that there are a lot of things that are untested and unanswered, I don't think it makes sense to mandate these things. And I think that if I were the average member of the public who doesn't really have time to be a nerd and look into this shit, I could understand the perception that the officials are giving contradictory information because they have, that the media is giving contradictory information because they have. So the narrative that we should just trust the experts, trust the media, and take the vaccine, take all the boosters right now, I think it is how people kind of end up on fucking conspiracy websites talking about there being like nanogerms in the vaccine or whatever, right? I think we need to be honest about where we are in development.
I think what you're saying there makes sense, that there can be a lot of contradictory information in the media. I'm just going to push back. An informed person is not making a decision to not get the vaccine. That's not true. I don't know what informed means there. It sounds like you're saying informed means they've just seen a lot of stuff, but like seeing a lot of stuff doesn't make you an informed person. In terms of like false positives on like some sorts of tests, like generally when these things are reported, it's like one or two things and they're incredibly minuscule. There's been a ton of research related to different types of side effects, and if they are big deals, they're being talked about, pretty widely. The J&J vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine, you can like all you want, Geisha, but the UK and other countries have restricted some of these vaccines to certain groups of people because they are talking about some of the side effects. So if there are big side effects, it seems like people are looking out for these, and if they are, then they make different recommendations based on, the groups of people that might be more adversely affected by these side effects than would be benefited by having the vaccine. And again, I'm just saying we're early in the research. We're given billions of doses.
As usual, we're gonna kill this boss, and then we'll be back to listen to this. Seems like a boring conversation so far. It's just your average COVID misinformation talking points. I don't think there's gonna be anything new here. Just the old dumb shit as usual. Oh my god. I had the wrong weapon on. Couldn't spam the thing. Whatever. If you could do the big slam, that'd be nice. Not that slam, the other big slam. There we go. Ah, I fucked it up. God damn it. I think this one I can get 5 swings, I believe. Maybe this. Oh, maybe 6 swings. Never mind. 2 full rotations of that. That's crazy. Fucked it up. Tad bit slower than last round, but it's still pretty good. Come on. Oof. Who's it doing? I pressed the parry button. Come on. There we go. Long run. Oh no. Nice. Oh, we got another down. I love how with this photon art, you can move in midair to dodge like attacks while you're doing it. 'Cause it's hard to time the parries for the missiles there because you can't see them coming. Fuck. Like I tried doing it there, it didn't work though. Like, oh. Like it's delayed. Yeah, that's good enough. Wonder. Nope. These downs are shorter than the elemental downs. Ah, okay. Fuck that one up. Got ourselves a break. Five, right? Well, I'm out of photons, so let's see what D6. Let's go! Ah, I tried to time it with it. Dude, I can get somebody else targeted by it. I can actually force the Hunter Arts Avenger myself. And Quintel, of course. Anybody looking for Quintel Knuckles? We love to see it.
Out. So this isn't going to change over like the next like 10 years. Like 10 years from now, people with the vaccine in their body was laying dormant and then it attacked their heart and, you know, blew it up or something. So in terms of like the average person not having the time to do the research or the average person getting a lot of conflicting information, I totally agree with that. I think there's a really good conversation here to have about science reporting, but I think it's absolutely incorrect to say that an informed person is saying they don't want to get the vaccine or they don't want to get any boosters, because an informed person is not making that decision as an uninformed person or somebody that's been watching too much like crazy media. In terms of like mass censorship happening with doctors and scientists, there is no mass censorship. There are a lot of social media platforms that are banning people because they have policies related to spreading misinformation about the coronavirus, but there are a multitude of countries, private companies, and universities all over the world that are doing research on this stuff, and when the only doctor you can find to support your stuff is some guy that has a Facebook page, probably is more likely that he's engaging in misinformation, even if he has a PhD, than every single country, company, and university around the planet is conspiring to silence just these people.
Gutex, really quick, do you feel that the scientists, well, first off, are you vaccinated?
No, I'm not vaccinated.
Okay. Do you feel like the science is pretty settled on it? Do you?
Oh yeah, wasn't Gutex actually banned for spreading? Oh wait, no. Or did he just lose his partnership or something? I thought Gutex was banned. Are they not streaming on Twitch? Hold on. Hold on. Is Gutex banned on Twitch? I thought he got banned too. They just removed the PogChamp email. Alright.
Feel like there's enough information out there that people should be able to determine at this point that the vaccine is safe?
No, I don't think it's settled at all. I mean, there's lots of different, there's tons of reports on the VAERS database about the different adverse events that get reported all the time. Obviously, as we can all agree, like it's still approved for emergency use authorization. Like there are no long-term studies because it really hasn't been that long. So I don't think it's settled, and it is true, like, time will tell as to what the end result is, years from now. But I mean, when you look at the development of myocarditis, especially in young men, I mean, it's quite disturbing. So to me, no, it's totally not settled. Every experiment needs a control group, right? So, me and Kay should just volunteer to be in the control group.
So what's disturbing about myocarditis showing up in young men?
Well, I mean, if they didn't have that before and then they took the vaccine and then they have myocarditis, I mean, I would be, that sounds scary to me.
Yeah, the myocarditis doesn't last very long, and it's an immune response. We should expect that, especially on the second shot, that somebody is exhibiting these sort of symptoms, right?
I don't think that it's quite that simple, and I mean, Oh, okay. All right. Well, since you say so, now I'm convinced. Okay.
Can I ask you a question? Why are you so much more concerned about myocarditis from the vaccine than myocarditis from the coronavirus?
Well, because first off, because the chances of surviving the coronavirus are so high.
Stop. What are the chances of surviving the vaccine? We're not talking about surviving. We're talking about myocarditis. So I'm asking you, why are you more concerned about myocarditis from the vaccine than myocarditis from the coronavirus?
That's a pretty good question.
Since when myocarditis is...
There's no answer to this. I'm just saying this is like I don't know why you guys bring this up. You're like, myocarditis. Yeah, myocarditis is like 7 times worse if you have the coronavirus. Why are you more concerned about myocarditis from the vaccine than from the actual coronavirus?
Is Destiny? So the question I have to ask, just to be
Wait,
sure,
why can't you answer the question? I want to hear. I'm curious.
causing blood clots. It's official. Like that information is out that the vaccine is causing blood clots.
No, it's not. There were only two that were doing it. It was the AstraZeneca one and it was the J&J one, and there was restrictions on that for a while when they investigated it. But for the mRNA vaccines, which are probably the ones you're the most concerned about, that is not the case. There is an increased risk of blood clots for taking birth control. Okay, just because there's like a minute increase doesn't mean that we would halt the entire vaccination program. And again, my understanding is that only happened with the ones that were tuned to the adenovectoviruses or whatever, the J&J and the AstraZeneca one, not the mRNA ones. So I want to know, why is myocarditis more of a concern for the vaccines than it is for the actual infection itself?
Well, just to make sure, trust me, he'll be able to ask the question, I promise you. I just want to ask really quickly. Is there any correlation between myocarditis and the coronavirus? I've never even heard of it.
Absolutely, of course. One of the big concerns about it.
Yeah, your risk of getting it is higher if you get the coronavirus. That's for sure. If you get the actual virus or not, but there is an increased risk if you get the vaccine. And I think the concern that some people have is that if you're getting a booster after booster every 3 or 4 months, because the efficacy does drop off after about 3 or 4 months for the Delta variant for the Pfizer vaccine, for example. So if you're getting booster after booster every 3 or 4 months to stay to keep the efficacy up, is there also an increase in the risk of myocarditis every time you get a booster shot? I think that's what people are concerned about. I don't know how fair concern that is, given that the risk of getting myocarditis as a result of COVID is still higher than that.
So I want to know, why are we concerned about myocarditis from the vaccines but not from the coronavirus?
200
I got VO,
athletes,
sorry,
like they passed out. Some of them died.
No, that's not true.
They had the vaccine.
No, that's not true. Why are we more concerned about the myocarditis from the vaccines instead of from the disease?
Because they started to say, which is usually the media started to say, that coronavirus now gives heart attacks and stuff. Like,
we're not talking about heart attacks. We're talking about myocarditis. We're talking about inflammation of the blood vessels in the heart.
They are giving the vaccine, and this already has been out about how it's causing myocarditis. And the chances of having a side effect from the vaccine is higher than dying from a flu.
Okay, just a minute, Geisha. So, Gutex, can you answer that? What would your response be to that? Why would you be more concerned with myocarditis from the vaccine as opposed to the coronavirus? It seemed like you weren't even aware that there was myocarditis.
I've never even heard that.
Do you think it's kind of strange that you're so obsessed with looking at the side effects from the vaccine, but you don't even know what the vaccine is protecting against? Do you think that might show a little bit of a bias in terms of your research habits?
About something that you are 99% more likely to survive.
How likely are you to survive the vaccine if billions of doses have been given out? Geisha, how likely are you to survive the vaccine?
I have family who now have heart problems after they took the vaccine.
Sure, and a lot of people know people that are dead after getting the coronavirus.
People dead, like what?
What?
We know people that are. A lot of people know people that are dead now because they've gotten the coronavirus. Well, but if they have heart issues, it sounds like they survived. So are we using survival, or are we talking about myocarditis?
Exactly, it was death through the coronavirus, because we know that a lot of hospitals were getting funded. They were getting paid for claiming that they had COVID death.
Why is it that you guys? So I just like to look at the.
This is just, I don't like vaccine
about
when
everything being labeled. Why are you so?
Destiny, let me finish, please.
There's actually, you can look it up. They made legal that the government, for whatever reason, can fake data.
No, they didn't.
So,
that's not true.
Wait, what?
Well, 1 second.
Okay,
No,
they didn't make you can look at the
financial
CDC
incentive. There's a what Geisha is saying is that there's a financial incentive for hospitals to report COVID cases as well as to put people on the ventilators. Is that right?
There's a financial incentive to code for anything that requires increased risk of care. Like, that's how care works.
There's also
Hold on.
E19 statistic data. I repeat, 2019 federal law will authorize fake COVID-19 statistic data.
It sounds to me like you're reading a Facebook or Instagram post. I don't know what you're...
No. You can find it. This was in the Defender or whatever, and this is just them reporting what they said, that this is a method that allows the government agency to share fake data and statistics, including national security and law enforcement for law enforcement purposes.
Can you tell me where you're reading this from? Like, you understand how insane it is that you're saying that the government said we can fake data? Like, what...
Oh, here, that's what they said here. The Defender.
Still not.
That's what they posted this stuff.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit.
I have a question actually. What I really want to get here is are y'all like, so y'all sound vaccine skeptic and whatnot, but is it because of like, are y'all against like a mandate happening here, or like where are we at with this? I feel like there's like, what I really want to get to at the heart of it here with Geisha and Gutex is more like, what's your criteria to approve the vaccine? Because Gutek's kind of name dropped here that, you know, we don't want to be guinea pigs for 3 years onward until we figure out the long-term studies and whatnot. So is it like, are we putting a value here that we really shouldn't be, in your opinion, doing any kind of vaccine deploying until we have long-term 3-year studies done and just let all this death happen? Or like, what's your metric for success? Help me understand.
It's a human right. It's a human right.
Wait, Geisha, hold on.
So,
Geisha, let Gutex respond. He asked Gutex, please.
Okay, so what you're asking is, what is my criteria for taking the vaccine?
Yeah, approving it, and you're like, what's your idealized success story going forward? Because you said yourself here that you like, you don't want to be a guinea pig for 3 years straight, or 3 years early. You know, you want some long-term studies done, which would require years to get there, implying that there's like a timetable where you want to, like, until we have 5 years of data on vaccine deploying, you wouldn't do it yourself. I'm trying to understand.
I mean, it's less about that. I don't think of it that way. To me, it's quite simple, and I think you guys are kind of missing my main point, which is that I personally, I'm not at risk. A 99.97% survival rate for somebody like myself is not cause for concern. So because that's the way that I see it, I don't see the upside of taking a vaccine for something that I think I have a really good chance of surviving anyways. And I probably already even had it, maybe even twice. I don't even know. I've never gotten tested. So it's not something. The what?
I'm sorry, just a quick one. What about the infectiousness rate? Like how prevalent it is for you to spread to other people?
I think that everybody needs to take responsibility for themselves. And because the success rate, the survival rate is so high, most people are going to make it. But if you're scared, you should take extra precautions, which is why, if people want to take the vaccines, they are free to do so. But that doesn't have anything to do. I mean, I don't see it that way. Like, that's not my responsibility to look out for every single person. That's everybody's own personal responsibility. Because I think that's the real heart of the issue, is whether or not you think that that everybody else's, like, security and safety is their own responsibility or the responsibility of everybody. So for me,
do we need police like at all then?
Weigh the risk
Just defend
reward
yourself,
on
bro.
like taking in.
We don't need police. Just fucking defend yourself. You know what? We don't need a military. Why the fuck do we need a military? Just defend yourself, bro. Take responsibility for your own safety. Like, Jesus.
An experimental injection versus just taking my chances with living my life.
I think if you could make again, if you do your research, and of course you're gonna come to a conclusion, it's gonna sound logical to you. But if you weighted analysis and you go, okay, I'm putting myself at direct harm. Should I put myself in direct harm to protect other people? I don't think anybody here would ask you to do that. But it seems like it's for the most part pretty safe. Like Destiny was saying, there's been and maybe there's like a handful of like very limited cases of myocarditis, and maybe in the future we'll find more things to figure it out. Again, I know you're gonna have your own sources there, but it seems like for the most part it's overwhelmingly safe and you're helping people.
I think there's tons of. I mean, have you guys actually looked at the VAERS database?
Okay, why do we keep using the VAERS database talking point?
Because it's an official government source.
What do you think? Can you tell me what a VAERS report is?
And what are we supposed to use?
Vaccine adverse event report.
By who? What does it mean?
What do you mean? What does it mean?
What is it? Like, tell me, what about? Like, what is a VAERS report?
I will.
Okay, it's okay. So a VAERS. So it's interesting to me because people will say it's bullshit that every single death was coded as a coronavirus death, which is not true. But you guys use that talking point over and over again. But then you'll go and you'll appeal to the authority of the VAERS database. VAERS database is just a database that you use to explore hypotheses. Okay, a VAERS report is literally just like, I can make this report to the CDC if I feel like I have an adverse report it to my doctor. Like, oh, I got a cough after I got the vaccine, or oh, like I have a big hemorrhoid now after I got my vaccine, and then you report it. That's it. The VAERS database is not like we have confirmed that every single adverse event here was a result of a vaccination. No sane person is going to report results off the VAERS database. Rather, you use tools to comb through data from the VAERS database, you build a hypothesis, and then you start testing groups of that versus other people in the population to see if something actually happened. You don't just say, here's a VAERS database report. It means nothing. Anybody, you can make one right now, well, you can't because you weren't vaccinated, but anybody that's gotten vaccinated can call their doctor and make what would be reported to the VAERS database as an adverse event, whether or not it happened, whether or not it was related to the coronavirus vaccine, whether or not it was just you feeling bad that day. It means nothing.
Okay, so Destiny, it seems like the purpose of because I'm not particularly familiar with the VAERS report, but it sounds like the purpose of the VAERS report is specifically so that people can report whatever they're experiencing, and then, yeah, like you said, we would use tools to then glean like information from that to try to determine if there's some sort of correlation between what people's experiences are and what is actually happening.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And so then it seems like if that's the purpose, that I guess trying to reflect upon VAERS data in order to try to see some sort of correlations seems like that's literally the entire intention. Now, obviously, we're not experts ourselves, right? And so we're not going to have like the perfect insight into like making sure we're controlling and all those things. That's the purpose of people actually running studies. But it does seem like we should be able to glean some information from VAERS
absolutely
data,
not.
right?
Well, I mean, like, if we see a bunch of adverse events that are reported, then yeah, it's cause for further investigation. But when you've got people out here that are spreading a record amount of misinformation about this vaccine, and then you've got more people that have ever gotten this vaccine than ever in human history, combined with the fact that literally anybody, you can go online right now. You go to the VAERS.hhs.gov and you can fill out your own VAERS reporting form right now that will be logged amongst all the others. And I think it might even be publicly accessible where people that have access to the database can see it. The idea that like these are some like, you know, absolutely confirmed adverse medical event related to the vaccine is just not true. You're treating this with so much authority when it's not. Anybody can fill one of these out. Now, if the purpose of these forums is, let's say a whole bunch of people start saying like, hey, my left arm hurts, or hey, I'm having trouble seeing, or whatever, then the CDC or another company might look in and be like, okay, well, hold on, we need to research this. This is like really fucked up. Like, we need to see what's going on. And then people will use this for further research. And we have used this for further research. And that's where all of our data comes from for adverse events relating to vaccines. People act like the VAERS database is this unknown, hidden database of all these adverse reactions that nobody is studying. Everybody is looking to this database to make sure that the vaccines are safe.
So do you think that there are like a large amount of people who are like fabricating information on the VAERS reports?
It could be. But I mean, I'm saying that people that look into it haven't found like, oh, here are some things that are cause for concern.
The reason for pause is trying to front run a conclusion from the VAERS report. Again, like you said, we're not experts. So just seeing like a stream of data and then just coming to a conclusion that it seems like there's like something negative happening, it could just be noise. And until we kind of get more educated people's opinion on it, we shouldn't really try to defer to that as a reason to not do something.
There's tens of thousands of deaths reported in there.
And there's hundreds of millions of people that have been vaccinated. You'll come out here and you'll say if somebody got shot in the head, they coded as a coronavirus death. Somebody could literally fill in a VAERS thing because their aunt died because she was 85 years old, got the coronavirus vaccine 2 weeks ago, and then fell down the stairs and killed herself. Like, and then people can report.
Are you aware it's a felony to forge a VAERS database report?
It's also a felony to lie in an affidavit to be used in court. But look how many affidavits Giuliani had to prove election fraud. That doesn't mean anything. Not all of these are prosecuted. You could fill out one of these. Yeah, hey, surfshark.deal/destiny. Get a VPN account. You can go ahead and do it yourself. You can do all the fraud you want. Like, what do you mean? Just because it's fraudulent to do it doesn't mean people won't do it. Especially when there's so much incentive right now to lie and to spread misinformation about the vaccine, of course. And not only that, people could be genuinely reporting side effects that they're having. Doesn't mean they're lying, but maybe I go get the vaccine and then I come home and maybe I just feel like, oh, I've got a cough or something, or maybe there's an underlying condition and I report an adverse event. That might be a true report. I'm not lying, but it's not really related to the vaccine.
So it sounds like, I guess I kind of get, like, it seems like if it is a felony in order to like fabricate that sort of information, then it seems like we should be able to at least put some weight on the reports themselves and assume that it's not like that there's some mass fabrication in these reports, right? Like that these things are mostly accurate, or do you disagree with that? Do you think
it doesn't have to be fabricated to be incorrect. For instance, look how many dipshits play League of Legends as jungle and blame their AD carry for losing the game. There's probably a lot of people that report that. It doesn't mean that's actually why they lost. They lost because they're jungle players and they're degenerate fucks, okay? The average age of the person reporting a death in VAERS is like 72 years old, right? There's probably a lot of legitimate people that died afterwards, and there's probably people that had legitimate symptoms afterwards. It doesn't mean it was related to the vaccine. This is only your step F1 report. This isn't a survey, or I'm sorry, this isn't like a study. This isn't a systematic review. This isn't a huge, like, you know, published database where we're going through and we're vetting everything. This is literally just, you got a vaccine, you feel something a week or whatever later, and then you just report to your doctor, hey, here's a side effect. There's tons of people reporting tons of stuff. There's gonna be a lot of noise in here.
Yeah. Especially they reported a lot of myocarditis in there.
Which is less than myocarditis reported for the SARS-CoV-2 virus. If you care about myocarditis, you should want to get vaccinated, because your chance of having myocarditis as a result of the vaccination is like 5 times less than if you actually get infected with the disease.
There was a point I wanted to take on earlier before I moved on, just because with extra plot of my asking of that long-term research and whatnot. And it seemed like you didn't really have much concern here over really, like, you're really fixated on individual agency and not any kind of, like, I haven't heard you really address here the whole, like, asymptomatic spreading that unvaccinated people are able to kind of, like, reinforce further to honestly prolong the pandemic. So I'm just curious here, did you have anything you wanted to elaborate on there? Because I didn't really hear you really address that, other than, like, a lot of, like, self-righteous rights to just not get vaccinated. But in that case, are we just, like, not going to address here the asymptomatic spread of COVID?
I mean, as far as I know, asymptomatic spread was one of the first things that got debunked. But it was so long ago, honestly. Like, I mean, I can dig it up if you want, but you know, this idea that you have to get tested when you don't have symptoms, or that there's all of this spread without symptoms, like, I think is largely not. I think that's largely not true. So that's and really, like, even it still kind of comes down to the suppression of early treatment protocols, like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and now monoclonal antibodies. So all of those things combined, I mean, along with personal responsibility, to me, would have solved this whole thing a long time ago. But that's not something that we ever talk about.
Okay, one of these things is not like the other one. You can't say there's suppression of monoclonal antibodies when that's literally an FDA, EUA, like emergency use authorization approved treatment. There is no suppression of monoclonal antibodies. No. But number two, ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Neither of these are.
That's not what I mean. I mean that I'm not saying that treatment itself is suppressed. I mean that it's not something that's, like, talked up.
Because it's really fucking expensive. There's not much available.
No, it's free. No, it's free.
I'm telling you, you're dead wrong. You cannot easily get the monoclonal antibodies depending on where you are. It is absolutely not true. My mom literally just had the coronavirus a week ago, and they looked everywhere to shop around for this, and they said the wait list was huge for this shit. So yeah, number one,
that changed recently because they pulled, like, a bunch of the doses, but for a long time that was not the case.
Okay, do you think it might be because more people are using it? The idea that they're pulling it, why would the FDA give EUA to it and then try to hamper it? Why wouldn't they just not approve it?
No, it's something that most people were not aware of up until relatively recently.
Isn't that because it just got approved EUA relatively recently? How long ago did it get authorization?
I don't know. It's been months and months and months.
Also, secondly, so hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin have been extensively studied. Hydroxychloroquine has absolutely shown no good use for standard of care when we're talking about treating.
There's absolutely tons of studies. They published it in January in the AMA journal that it is effective. No. And it's not just that it's effective. It needs to be used with azithromycin and zinc.
Yeah, I know. We've heard the azithromycin, antibiotic, and zinc every single time. They've looked at this versus standard of care in other countries. This doesn't work. Same thing with ivermectin as well. There's a ton of research on ivermectin. There are no countries that use either of these two drugs for treatment, and it doesn't work.
No. Oh my God. India, Japan
absolutely
Africa.
Does not. No, Africa's not a country. Okay, no. And also, just because some hospitals use it doesn't mean that this is the standard of care in a country. Okay, ivermectin has not shown any efficacy for treating SARS-CoV-2, and neither does hydroxychloroquine.
Hey, honestly, like, this is.
If we could wait 1 second, please. One second. Like, let's try to slow it down because it's starting to get really cantankerous. So, regarding ivermectin, was there a pretty heavy like usage of ivermectin when India encountered its crazy COVID spikes?
Yeah.
And they still got spikes. There was no ivermectin.
You can go to ivmmeta.com.
Sorry, go ahead. Go first, and then get it.
Yeah, you can go to ivmmeta.com. There's 73 studies listed.
Fuck.
You know, you can look through them yourself. I mean, there's tons of different. I mean, in India, they've been using it. In Japan, they started using it several months ago.
So you can go to
they are
websites
using
that
it.
contain a ton of garbage preprint studies. Half of these end up getting pulled. Some of the largest ones for ivermectin did get pulled because the data just wasn't good, or because the data set didn't exist. On one of the ivermectin, the largest ivermectin study, the data set was fabricated. There were copy pasting rows of the data. I think it was some tech guys that ended up sorting through the database to figure this out, where they were just copy pasting rows. It was very obvious because the patients had the exact same descriptions. So no, also Japan does not use ivermectin. I don't know where this talking point came from. I'm pretty sure they say it explicitly on their public health website. They do not use ivermectin to treat this. Maybe this came from a Joe Rogan show, and that's why everybody's repeating it. Ivermectin has not. The only place where ivermectin has been shown to be helpful in treating the coronavirus are in cases where, surprise, surprise, certain types of parasites are very common. Chances are the ivermectin is just helping either as a prophylactic or as a treatment because it's probably treating a parasite, not because it's helping with a viral infection.
Wait, okay, Geisha, were you aware of ivermectin being used in India at all?
We've been treating in my country for a whole year until they started saying that now we need vaccines, and then they stopped. All of the doctors try to like not prescribe it, like, because you know there's like, it seems like there's a hierarchy in medicine where there's a main guy in the politics, like in the office. And they started saying that they need to start recommending the vaccine instead of ivermectin. We were treating people for a whole year. There was almost no death in my country at all due to COVID. And still till this day, I still ship ivermectin here, and I have hydroxychloroquine. And every time, if I have a little cold or anything, I use hydroxychloroquine, and it's like I never feel like it doesn't last for long. Like even the worst times that I see everybody sick around me, it barely, like I'll feel something in my nose, and then 2 days I'll be like back in track, like feeling great. I have experienced many times that it's something that works, not like because I just say so. I've tried it myself. My family has tried it, and people around me have tried it as well, because they've seen that it does help you when you're feeling sick, and not just with COVID, but any other like virus, or because kind of they're very similar, SARS-CoV-1 or 2. But it helps you heal faster, a difference to a lot of pharmaceutical products that tell you that they're going to alleviate symptoms. You want the body to heal. You want to not to just make you feel sedated or something. If you want to get rid of an illness or any sort of viruses.
Have you gotten tested ever for having the coronavirus?
Yeah.
Did you have the coronavirus when you were using ivermectin?
I don't test anymore.
So then you have no idea if either of these medications helped you recover from the coronavirus. That entire anecdote was worthless. You might have literally just had a head cold. You might have had. You might have had a cold, and then you took some random pills because somebody on the internet told you to, and you think that it cured you. You have no idea. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, Merck, the company that makes, one of those evil pharmaceutical companies that makes the ivermectin pill, literally published on their website that there was no data showing that their ivermectin pills were effective at treating SARS-CoV-2. It literally is published on their website. Do you want to put?
You can go to jail for discrediting ivermectin in India because people die due to politicians and people talking negatively about something that helps you get rid of a virus.
Geisha, ivermectin and HCQ, hydroxychloroquine, were literally dropped from India's COVID-19 treatment protocol in September. You're lying, okay? Here's the story right here. Boom, go read it. You don't have to make yourself look any dumber, okay? They literally dropped it from their treatment protocol because there's no evidence that it works, okay? Now, why is it that Merck, the private company that makes the pill, why is it that Merck, the company that makes the pill ivermectin, they themselves said it
Also, on top of that, India isn't really known for having the best hospitals or even the best government to begin with. Aren't they known for being like a pretty corrupt government in the first place? I don't know if I would ever trust India
It wasn't
as like an official source for almost anything. to be
effective at
honest.
treating the coronavirus. Why?
Because it's big pharma, for God's sake.
They are big pharma. They're big. That's big pharma.
That helps. But they will not run something like that.
But they're big pharma. Why wouldn't they say their pill helps? They can sell their pill. They make more money. They're big pharma.
For example, I can myself create my own brand of hydroxychloroquine if I want to.
We're not talking about. I'm talking about ivermectin.
Okay, so what's it? Are they gonna lose more or less? If you're gonna make more money selling a vaccine to the whole world?
I don't think Merck has a vaccine, do they? Merck has a pill derived from, I think it comes from ivermectin. They have a pill, their ivermectin pill, said they released a statement on their own pill saying that there was no therapeutic effect against COVID-19.
So why do you think they will say that?
Hold on,
I
really
don't know.
quickly.
It's their own pill. They stand to profit from it if more people buy it.
So Destiny, from this thing that you just linked, I'm looking at one of the paragraphs, and it says recommending that ivermectin be dropped from the clinical guidance. Experts cited 13 systematic reviews, of which 7 out of 13 showed mortality benefit, 4 out of 13 no mortality benefit, and 2 out of 13 inconclusive or unclear. So it seems like if 7 out of the 13 things that showed there was a mortality benefit, then it seems like ivermectin was somewhat effective, right?
Because it depends on the quality of the study, and it depends on the quality of the studies that they're citing. My guess is that if they're willing to drop it from their recommended for their clinical guidelines, then the 7 out of 13 that showed mortality benefit probably weren't studies that were done well. So they weren't like randomized controlled trials or prospective studies.
So then why would they use those once decided if these are the only studies you have?
Probably because if you're going to make a recommendation, you want to cite the totality of the evidence. Otherwise, people like Geisha would be like, oh, well, look, they didn't even look at all the studies. That'd be my guess.
Okay. All right, Jeff. Let me ask you a question really quickly. I believe at one point...
Oh, wait, hold on. Wait, I just want to respond to you, because if you read one paragraph down from what you just said, additionally, there was a high risk of bias in many of the studies, particularly with the ones showing mortality benefit, as the level of certainty is low in them. That's what it says in the next paragraph.
Okay. All right. I respect that. Jeff, you at one point you had said, I'm sorry, you're vaccinated, as I'm aware. Did you get it immediately, or were you hesitant, reluctant? Like, how was that process for you?
It's probably like socially taboo. I was like, let the old people get it first, because they need it if it works, and if they figure something out, then, I mean, they list. It was long enough. That's more tongue-in-cheek, but I was a little bit, it's new, and I wasn't on that list of people who were approved to get it early. Once it became general purpose, it was something that was always in the back of my mind. I just never really left the house. I was a homebody, so I didn't really get it for a while. I kind of got it in, I want to say it was April. I think I got it in April, and then I got the second dose in July. But yeah, I never had a problem with it. I never really had a problem with it. I was in enough comorbidities, being black, overweight, having high blood pressure, that if I randomly get it, there's a high chance that it can kick your ass. And it doesn't make sense to roll those kind of odds. So yeah, I was very easy to get it. And then my job also gave me $1,000 for getting the vaccine. So I got a vaccine for the vaccine.
Wait, what?
You said I hate you so much.
Yeah.
I'm so upset.
Yeah.
Are you raising your hand? Or not?
Yeah, Doobie's raising his hand.
Oh, is that that? Oh, Doobie, what's up?
So yeah, I'm just kind of curious, because I, like I said, I'm somebody who did take the vaccine, and I think it made a lot of sense for me to do it. But given that the data that's currently available is limited because studies aren't complete, some of the data is contradictory, and our understanding of the virus and its variants is still evolving. I mean, as far as I'm aware, there are currently 12 known COVID variants. With Delta and Omicron being variants that are currently classified as variants of concern, there's evidence of an IHU variant emerging that might become a variant of concern. And we know that the AstraZeneca vaccine, for example, even if you get 2 doses of it, it's still only 67% effective against the Delta variant. And that efficacy begins to drop off even more after 6 months. Right? So there are a lot of questions about how effective the vaccines currently available are and how effective the boosters are against the variants that are out there. Right? So given that that's the case, right, is there anybody here who would be for mandating vaccines for all citizens who don't have an underlying health condition that would make them exempt? So I think that's my problem is, right? I think that it doesn't make sense to mandate this thing for people, given that there's so many answered questions right now.
So that was going to be the next question, actually. Go ahead.
When you're saying mandating, you're talking about the government busting in people's doors and jabbing them?
Well, so for example, in some places in Australia, there are, I don't know what to call them, vaccine squads that are going out to the Aboriginal communities, to their houses, and not busting down the door and holding them down to give them a vaccine, but showing up and saying, hey, here's a vaccine, it's required that you take it, that sort of thing. Right, so yeah, that
they're telling him that they must take it, or they have the option to take it, and it's really easy. We're making it as easy as possible for you to just take it.
My understanding is that it's been mandated, but if if it hasn't, if I'm incorrect about that going on in Australia,
worse
and when
nightmare.
they're showing up at the store, this just saying, hey, here's a vaccine if you want to take it. But what I'm asking is if they did mandate this, right, for every adult that didn't have some other underlying health condition, what would any of you be for that?
For me, it's absolutely not, especially with the Omicron variant right now. It's so like not deadly and highly infectious that it seems it's gonna, like, everybody's gonna get it at this point. That if you're vaccinated and you're caught up on your boosters, and we have, well, the monoclonal antibodies don't actually show that much effectiveness against the Omicron variant, but the death rate isn't that high anyways. At this point, like, you're responsible for yourself. We have the tools now with the vaccines to combat against this, and it's not very deadly.
I don't think we can mandate it. It's just a loser politically. I think we just have to let it go. Let people die, let it spread, let it mutate, whatever the fuck. I think that battle has been lost at this point to all the misinformation and everything. I don't think it's worth it to go down that road.
Yep. But we can always look back at the actual deaths that were caused by the misinformation that was spread, and the exposure of our country's weaknesses towards misinformation and towards bioweapons in the future, especially if you go down the whole rabbit hole of this being engineered in a lab, shows that the U.S. is very susceptible to getting destroyed by
whole
an actual
world.
virus. Yeah.
If I may here, yeah. So if I were to break down like the logistics and execution of the mandate, in reality, we're asking about a mandate in order to be able to mitigate the further spread of COVID, so we can kind of like end the pandemic and get over it. So yeah, the vaccine mandate is not really going to help the vaccine skeptic or the vaccine hesitant to really engage. They're going to just find a new excuse to think it's Big Brother taking over or whatever, possibly, or more. Rather, we got to do like a more of a pro benefit. Like, you got to perk up the benefits or perk up the worker safety protocol so that people can like safely quarantine, isolate. Whether that means like, I would, for example, I would probably be more into some kind of like segregation, if you will, where you just allow, if you want to be no vax, then yeah, here are like no vax zones, and then there's like vaccination zones you can go to comparatively. Again, very different than having like a vaccine passport or a vaccine mandate, but rather just like think of it like smoking and non-smoking. I would entertain that way before I would entertain a vaccine mandate, but before both of those, I would heavily explore like things we can do to really get that vaccine adoption going in a positive way where people want to, because they see that as a solution to stopping the spread of COVID, so we can get over the pandemic, so we can return to normal, rather than pretend where we are right now isn't
like a payment.
Wait, so
Jeff, 1 second.
So to be clear.
Jeff, you were nodding when he said like segregating people in that way. Do you think that would be a good idea?
Yeah, put them all in Kansas, like someplace we just really don't need, and just wall them right off.
Right. Thank you for asking the question.
I can elaborate there if you want me to. I know I use the word segregation, and it has like a negative connotation, but I can elaborate if you want to hear more what I'm getting at there.
Sure, please.
That'd be great.
And then Doobie, you can respond.
Yeah, so more what I'm getting at there is like, so ultimately, hypothetically, if there's like a lot of people who are like COVID conscious who want, I want to go to movie theaters, concerts, large gatherings, weddings, etc. But I'm concerned that there are people, because we have like a really shitty vaccination verification right now, where like the fucking piece of paper with no federal log of who got vaxxed with what dose at what point, etc. So ultimately, it's just kind of like a shit show to want to go to a theater, to want to go to restaurants that don't cater to a vaccine passport some type here. So therefore, I think there's commercial viability. I'm trying to make the economists here happy now. There's commercial viability to catering to those who are like who are COVID aware like myself and want to just be able to do what we did before 2020 safely. So I'm just like, yeah, let the businesses decide. Let them go ahead, and of course they're going to cater to just like having the maximum amount of people as possible. But just if there's two restaurants, one is openly welcoming unvaccinated, and the other is opening vaccinations. I would like to see that at least explored and see where that goes, so that those who are getting vaccinated at least have the option to be able to like, I don't know, like move on to some kind of like, hey, here's the prosperity that all the unvaccinated want to be in, minus the risks. And maybe that would possibly lure the unvaccinated to maybe see the vaccination in a different light, rather than conspiratorial and a negative. Maybe.
Doobie, you gotta smash this one out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm just kind of curious as to like how far you could take that. So if you're okay with like vaccine segregation for COVID, like anti-vaxxers, right? Would you extend that same level of like segregation to people who were hesitant about other vaccines, like the chickenpox vaccine or diphtheria or flu vaccine.
We already have that now, do we not?
Hepatitis. Well, we have that for like kids who want to go to like a public school, right? But I think you're talking about like public spaces, not just like public buildings, right? Like hepatitis B. So would you also have segregated spaces for those people because they're refusing to get the other vaccines that we're currently mandating?
Are those asymptomatically spreading and/or causing a mass amount of death that we've never seen before? That's right.
I guess not, but you could argue that this because we I guess not. But you could argue that's because we currently require them for kids who go to public school, and so most people have those vaccines. So if there were like someone out there who didn't want to get the hepatitis B vaccine or the chickenpox vaccine or whatever, would you be in favor of segregation for those people along with the COVID anti-vaxxer?
I'm trying to see like the point of your hypothetical here. If there's already like the catch-all protocol, if they go through public school, they're gonna get those vaccines anyway. Then why are we in a principled sense, if it doesn't cause asymptomatic problematic spread where your body, your choice, your decision is now affecting other safety by your existence, that changes the whole paradigm here. That's the issue.
Is that true though?
What about the annual flu vaccine? Like that affects other people if you don't get it, right? You could get the flu, not have the symptoms, and still pass it to another person.
We don't have hospitalizations and death at the rate we have right now with COVID flu. That's the difference there. The severity of what COVID can do on the infection is what changes the situation. Yeah, flu doesn't bother me. I mean, it would be nice if people got the flu shot yearly. Certainly, I'd like you to do that for your own safety, honestly. But yeah, no, that one, it doesn't bother me. No, there's like. You're trying to find a slippery slope to pin me in down here with like.
I'm not. I'm not trying to like slippery slope into it. I'm just trying to understand like what the threshold is because over 30,000 people die of the flu every year.
Severity of the infection. 830,000 Americans dead. ICU wards were overwhelmed. Hospitals were at full capacity back in August of 2021, and then some. That is a severity that I find is problematic and disrupting society and endangering a lot of people.
Okay. So if the flu were right now it's about 30,000 a year. If it were at like 100,000, you say that we should have like mandated flu vaccines and I'm sorry, not mandated vaccines. I mean vaccine segregation for people that aren't getting the flu vaccine every year.
I mean, we could find a number if you want me to, but the point rather than trying to find a specificity over like where the flu's lethalness would be of concern. The point is that it's not. So that why are we entertaining that in the first place here? That's the difference. In reality right now, the COVID lethality is much different than the flu one. And that difference is what is the danger here.
Okay, so let me ask a question really quick. Gutex, would you say, just because I mean, algorithms a lot of time force us into different kind of bubbles, and so we interact with totally different people. Would you say that the mandates have been something that have kind of discouraged some people who might have been on the fence from actually getting the vaccines? Do you feel like that the more the government gets forceful regarding vaccines, do you feel that it makes some people even more hesitant?
Yeah, I think that definitely plays a role in it. When you force people to do something, or you coerce them, or you make their life purposefully difficult in order to persuade them to perform some sort of behavior that you want, like of course it's going to make the problem worse for some people. For other people, they're just going to go along with the program, and the challenge, or I guess the battle, is for the people that are in between, because basically everybody here is already sort of set one way or the other on what their decision making is and what their worldview is. So the mandates really are about the people in the middle that can be swayed one way or the other.
I don't think the mandates are about swaying people. I think the mandates are effective, but that's only because I think the vast majority of people that haven't been vaccinated are just kind of like lazy, or they just don't really want to go do it. I think there's a lot of people out there, or it seemed to be the case that there were a lot of people out there that like, they knew the vaccines are probably good, but they're not like in a group that's super affected, and they don't really care that much. But if work was like, you have to get vaccinated, come in, they're like, oh, fuck it, I'll go do it. I don't think that of the vast majority of people that are not vaccinated, I don't think that a lot of them have super strong opinions about like the vaccine. They're just kind of like, whatever. And then if they're forced to do it, they'll do it.
At this point, I think that's, maybe early on that was the case, but I mean, it's been, it's been like a full year now.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, then it's probably getting closer and closer to that being the case. But.
good observation. That's what I want to point out.
I had a question. It was like kind of during the last topic, and so the two that are kind of pro, well, they don't feel like the vaccination is important. They feel like there are treatments for the vaccination, and they also feel like the mortality is not that high. Do you have any consideration for long COVID? Like, does long COVID scare you at all? Because there seems to be that there are people who are having very long-term, like let's say you get very, very gravely ill. It seems like it's having long-term effects on people's health as well. Does that concern you?
I mean, it doesn't concern me because I think that the way that COVID affects you physically is largely related to what your decision making was leading up to that point. For example, if you're somebody who works out, eats healthy, takes care of yourself, and I mean, at least as far as I can tell, you're not going to be super heavily affected, especially at this point. I mean, you know, with Omicron not being super deadly or anything. So, I mean, I personally haven't done a lot of research on long COVID because it's not something, because I think it's just proportionate to how well you take care of yourself in the first place.
So one point I actually wanted to add on here about the hesitancy thing is that as Destiny was bringing up earlier about people who are just like lazy and not getting it. Another thing that would really help with the adoption here on that hesitancy for those who are just too lazy to do it would also be just strengthening the worker protections. I imagine a lot of people probably not really eager to get pinned down with like the 2 days of fatigue or soreness that they're going to feel when getting the vaccine, if that does happen to them to a severe enough degree to affect their capability to work. So the fact that we don't have like really any like, I don't know, federal incentives to go get vaccinated safely, as in like you are guaranteed like, I don't know, 3 days off to recover, I think would go a long way. Or just like even just paid time off, that way you're not like.
Imagine if you could get the jab and get guaranteed 3 days PTO. Oh, oh, you would see people real fucking quick change their mind. You're telling me all I gotta do is take a jab and I get I take it on a fucking Wednesday and then I'm off the rest of that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday I get 5 days off, bro. I'm going on a cruise real quick. We're taking a trip to fucking New York, Miami, going to Vegas or something. What the fuck? Imagine 3 days guaranteed PTO. Oh my god. People would the tune of anti-vax would change so fast. Oh my god.
Like losing money because, you know, again, we have the whole issue right now with wealth inequality where like, you know, majority working class Americans are, you know, $400 away from sabotage, or they're living check to check in general, and like missing any amount of work is like detrimental to meeting the unaffordable rent in this country. So I could see where if you're on a gig economy like Uber or whatever, and you get put under for 3 days because of the vaccine, that is a very understandable shitty situation to be in, and it would probably cause me too to prolong and delay getting vaccinated. So I just wanted to call to action here that worker protections is definitely something the USA is doing really fucking bad at, in terms of like that particular reason why there's a hesitancy to get vaccinated for those who would do it otherwise.
I just want to say, looking up real quick, I don't think long COVID is correlated at all with your level of health or fitness. You can Google like athletes long COVID, and it seems like it's pretty random who gets affected or who has long-term effects by this. It's not really correlated with your level of fitness or your personal health or anything.
We would need a study to find that though, right? Like we can't look for like individual anecdotes if it happening to individuals. We probably have to see, right? Because I don't know for sure that they're correlated at all. I have no idea. I'm not really familiar with that. But like in order for us to be able to make a statement that it's not correlated, we'd have to probably.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like good information about long COVID out right now in terms of studies. I just know that the idea that like if you're healthy or if you're athletic, you don't have to worry about it. That's not true.
What do you think, Gutex? Do you disagree with that?
I mean, to me, if you're healthy and you take care of yourself and you work out, like the amount that you're affected by any disease is going to be much less than somebody who doesn't take care of themselves. I mean, that's just basic. I mean, it's just basic biology to me. Yeah. So for me, yeah, like it's not a concern.
Okay. I think we probably can switch to the second topic at this point. Does anyone have any closing ideas or closing thoughts on this? Grimace, I know you at one point you said you are vaccinated, but you were... there was something about mandates. How did you feel about it really quickly?
Although for the Omicron, I don't think any kind of mandate's necessary at this point, and we can see that it's endemic, but bring me back like 6 months ago, it'd be like, yeah, I have no problem with the government incentivizing people to get vaccines, like paying them, for instance, or coming to their door and making it really easily available to them, and perhaps giving them a $50 bill to take it because it's really important. We're going to have vaccines work in a way that requires everybody's buy-in, right? So I don't like kill my grandma accidentally or kill somebody else's grandma accidentally. So I would be fine with incentivizing it. I'm fine with the government requiring, just like they do with troops, if they're going to have a closed-in workplaces to require vaccines, that kind of thing sounds fine.
Oh my god, I'm just getting
allowing
comboed.
small businesses to make those kind of
How do you whiff that?
against people who are not vaccinated as well. But I'm not like for kicking down doors and giving people the jab. But even all those mandates I just mentioned, as far as it goes now with the latest variant, those don't seem necessary at all either. So at this point, none. Like we need to get off of it and move on. But a couple of months ago, I wish we had something more to get even more people vaccinated to prevent a lot of the deaths that we've been seeing across the country.
That brings me to the next point. We can't get off of this yet. So Omicron, which is oftentimes called the Amarion variant, it seems like it is significantly less lethal, right? Like it seems like that seems to be the case, and it seems like it's just way more infectious. So it's starting to like very much more resemble the actual common flu, right? At this point, do you think that maybe we should probably rethinking COVID strategy at this point? And do you guys think that COVID is with us for life? In other words, if 20 years from now, are there going to be random COVID outbreaks as there are random flu outbreaks, and like COVID season, like there is flu season, and this is just going to be something that's here forever, and we're just going to have to learn to just go ahead and function and live like normal and just get back to like pre-COVID times? Do you think that that's in our future?
I think it's always going to be endemic with us. That seems to be the case at this point. Right now, the science is still out on whether or not